exercise that was done was a very comprehensive one, the task force that was established. And then the draft code revisions which were there, they were publicized, there were several roundtables. So they did a robust process. Still, there are certain significant improvements that are required. And I think the basic issue is because of the nature of business and our culture, and also because I think the fundamental flaw is the rule-based. Because when you want to make it rule-based, and also, you know, you're not able to enforce it, as I highlighted the issues in enforcement, then obviously the tendency is that only include the minimum requirements, you know. So I think the code in the process that have been developed is not an ideal code because of the situation and the environment that we are in. I think if the fundamental concept of comply and explain approach is adopted, then a much better SECP and this task force would have been able to, because I'm sure they would have, when they were formulating these recommendations, there must have been kind of constraint that whether or not people will accept it. The resistance that is there from the private sector and from the corporate sector for implementing so many requirements. So if it is market-based and comply and explain, I think we could have had much kind of better comprehensive code. And that would have actually enabled at least those companies, 50 or 100, who are really interested in implementing good corporate governance, they would have implemented and they could have actually become an example for others to follow.
My name is Safar Ali. I'm working as a head of internal audit in Allahabad Sugar Mills Limited. My question is, can a head of internal audit become a CFO after attaining the 5 years of experience of a listed company? Can he switch the role as a CFO if there is a casual vacancy arises?
Then head of internal audit, if he has remained for 5 years, let's say.
Yeah, there's nothing which debars the head of internal audit from taking on the role of the CFO with 5 years experience. Yeah.
My name is Khurram Ali. I am the head of internal audit from Excite Pakistan. Actually, I want to add to that question of Abdul Rahim Surya regarding the qualification of the CFO and probably the head of internal audit. It's not the question of 5 years only. It's the minimum educational requirement which has been raised from the BCom to the MCom or the MBA as well. And when the code was first introduced back in 2002, and somebody raised the question to Mr. Masood Ali Naqvi, who should have been the session chairman today, that how can a BCom with a 5 years experience equate to a chartered accountant? And the reply which came was that there are so many BComs with 5 years of experience or more than 5 years of experience having the knowledge of the industry better than a fresh chartered accountant would have. So I just want to know that what has happened after the lapse of 10 years. There's those BComs having a better knowledge of the industry. Now that requirement has been replaced and the BComs have to be the MComs now.
Respond करेंगे?
I said what I had to if you want.
I think Ashmi Sahab has already.
I think Mr. Naqvi would be in a better position had he been here.
देखिए, बात ये है कि मैं पहले ही कह चुका हूँ कि मेरे ख्याल में ये जो रिक्वायरमेंट होती है ना इस तरह की कि इतना एक्सपीरियंस होना चाहिए और इतनी क्वालिफिकेशन होनी चाहिए, ये to specify it generally because each person would be different, and it is actually at the company level for the audit committee and for the board to decide whether a person is appropriate. You may find examples where a person with 3 years experience maybe, if he has the relevant experience, if he has the relevant experience of financial reporting compared to another person who has 10 years experience in the financial, okay, he may be doing costing or some other job, not exactly relevant. Because code even does not even specify that it has to be financial reporting and blah blah. It doesn't detailed enough. So it will create problems. I think it requires more debate, and it needs to be, I would suggest that ICAP should deliberate on this, because, and the council should give its recommendations. And as I said, the code needs to be revised and updated more frequently than it has been in the past, because it has to be a live document. It doesn't mean that it changes every month or every 3 months, but significant changes or immediate changes required can be done in a year's time, and maybe every 3 years there should be an updation. But there will be practical issues in implementation.
I want to clarify that because this is the membership of the Institute, you have a right to know this. The Institute of Chartered Accountants is one of the founding institutes of the Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. When the task force was set up to review the code, a separate place on the task force was kept for a representative of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. So there was a contribution which was given in the task force by the representative of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Even otherwise, when the first draft or the final draft of the revised code came in, it was sent to all the more relevant stakeholders, including the Council of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Yeah. So there was a feedback which we received from the Council, and like the other relevant stakeholders, which were the stock exchanges and the businesses and the banks, etc., all the feedback that was received was collated, and it was again debated, and the final thing came up before the Securities Exchange Commission. So if there are certain views being expressed here today about what is missing or what would have been preferred, these are very healthy professional views that should be debated and discussed at every forum. It doesn't mean that what happened was wrong, and it doesn't mean that what happened will survive for all times to come. So I think this is a very healthy debate. We learn each time that we discuss it, and so I think if so there are views on changes. The lesson to be learned, in fact the takeaway is that do not wait 10 years before reviewing the code. In fact, in the more developed economies, take UK for example, the UK Code of Corporate Governance came out in June of 2010, and the moment it came out, they immediately started working on some areas of concern, and they formed a committee to take a look at it. So I think that this is the lesson to sort of take away from this. And as far as the qualification of the CFO is concerned, the whole idea was to level the playing field and not to try and tilt it too sharply in favor of any one qualification or the other. So the way that it is being done, it may appear that it is not charitable to chartered accountants, because people who are MComs with experience can occupy the same position. But it does tend to level the playing fields. If there are chartered accountants who are experienced and can hold jobs in listed companies, I can assure you that their employer will be able to go to SECP and make a convincing enough argument if that person has been appointed as a CFO of a company, and SECP will listen.
Okay, thank you very much for all the questions, and I must say thank you very much and compliment the learned speakers for their very comprehensive presentations. I would like to request both the speakers to come here for the receiving a very small souvenir, and Mr. Saad Kalia, the Chairman of the Regional Committee, representing the Regional Committee in place of Adnan, will be giving this memento to our speakers. Mr. Fawad Hashmi. Thank you. Shah Saab, thank you very much. Now the vote of thanks by Mr. Saad Kalia.
In the end, I would like to thank on my behalf and on the behalf of Southern Regional Committee and on your behalf our learned speakers, Mr. Asad Ali Shah and Mr. Fawad Hashmi, for taking this time out and also listening to your questions. There have been few comments which we have noted, and on behalf of you, we will be writing to the council to look into those matters. One matter was raised by Shah Saab regarding initialing of accounts. The other matter was regarding the qualifications of CFO. There were some concerns raised by a number of persons, so we'll write to the council on behalf of yourselves. I would also like to thank the SRC team for organizing this seminar, and in the end I would like to request you to join us for dinner. Thank you.
डॉक्टर बना दिया मैं क्या करूँ